The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse Ewell. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle, where you can access your full potential right now. Finally break free from destructive habits. That dream life, if you want it, you can have it. This is where you transform your health, mind, business, and relationships. Or do nothing and keep your life the way it is. But if you're ready for change, you're in the right place. This is where you're gonna learn how to live a habit-based lifestyle. You are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewell. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.
Welcome back to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Ewell, and today we're going to be talking about Broke Back Bob. So the title of this episode is obviously Broke Back Bob. Broke Back Bob represents a man, a woman, someone in your life who triggers you, antagonizes you. In my case, someone in my life who probably over the last, 5-6 months, anything that's ever said about COVID-19, anything that's ever said about Donald Trump or anything political, Brokeback Bob shows up. Now, Brokeback Bob is a real person, and he is also someone who I have had a relationship with in the past. He used to be a client of my gym, but he really just represents someone who may trigger you in your life. And so as we get into this episode, I want you to really think about someone in your life who triggers you. They could be named Bob, they could name somebody else, but I want you to understand that you need people in your life, in your business, who trigger you, because when you investigate the trigger, what ends up happening is we actually begin to learn about ourselves. We begin to discover things inside of ourselves that are uncovered. It's almost like, the waves that come crashing in would wash away all the sand. And then once the tide goes out, what we see is what was uncovered, which was, rocks, all these other things that we begin to see. And so when you investigate the story that you tell yourself about someone else, the story you project out on someone else, when you investigate the evidence, when you investigate all options of the story, you can begin to reflect back on yourself what you can learn. And so for many of you, it could be, listen, the season we're in is all about politics. So whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, hate Trump, like Trump, the things that if we look and investigate in the stories, then we can really learn a lot about ourselves. We could even do this with our wife, our kids. But what I want to walk you through today is how to actually reframe the story that I told myself about Brokeback Bob, and how out of that, I got a key, I got a lesson, and I got to discover what was really going on inside of me and why it was triggering me. And if you don't learn how to do this, you will stay stuck hating the same person. You will stay stuck upset. You will stay stuck upset at life, becoming a victim, to whoever's president, becoming a victim to your own thoughts, your own reality, your own beliefs. But the minute you start investigating those very things is the minute that you can unlock your full potential. It's the minute you can unlock power inside of yourself, and that power can be translated to almost anywhere in your life. And as we walk through this today, I want to walk you through the story that I told myself and how I changed that story into a powerful lesson that ultimately is going to increase my potential, and it's going to actually bring some new habits into my life, and it's going to actually help protect my mindset and my skills moving forward. So let's get into the story. So as the story goes, this gentleman, Brokeback Bob, likes to show up only on specific posts that are around, politics. And so he would always jump in and, comment or whatever and say these things. But this guy also represents someone that, I watched 3-4 years ago be in the exact same spot today, plus 10 pounds. And so the thing is he's just waiting to pounce. He's waiting to pounce on somebody. But if you go on his own page, you would never know, because he doesn't stand for anything on his own page, only in the comments. And you guys, if you're on social media, you know who I'm talking about. There's people that somehow have a voice, have an opinion on everybody else's stuff they post and attack it. But when it comes to their own, they don't do that there. And they all have the same story. I don't do this on my own page, because of this. That's not how I use Facebook, yet I use it in the comments. And so it's more illogical. But let's get into the story. So the story I told myself is Bob is a pussy keyboard warrior who wouldn't last 2 minutes with me. And the evidence I have in that is Bob won't even show up on his own page. Bob couldn't make it in my gym. Bob doesn't stand for anything, at least what I see. Bob only comments on the things that he doesn't like. And then I got into the me version. Jesse is a pussy keyboard warrior who wouldn't last 2 minutes with me. Now, as I do this, I want to pull myself out of the situation. So I'm not going to say I'm going to say Jesse, as if I'm stepping back away and investigating this story. But Jesse is a pussy keyboard warrior who wouldn't last 2 minutes with me. Now, based on the way Jesse is showing up today, it is purely ego-driven about being right. Based on how Jesse's showing up, of course, if you're going to write political posts, people are going to get triggered. If you're going to write posts about racism, if you're going to write posts about religion, people are going to get triggered. So Jesse is talking just as much smack and just as much as Bob. So as we get into the evidence, we start to uncover that Jesse's acting no different than Bob. Jesse's actually trying to trigger people because that's what Jesse really likes to do. And so as we get into the opposite story, so the original story was Bob is a pussy keyboard warrior who wouldn't last 2 minutes with me, turns to Jesse is a pussy keyboard warrior who wouldn't last 2 minutes with me. And based on himself, taking himself out of the game, he's right. I would crush his mindset really quick. Now, the opposite version turns into Bob is a badass warrior and is standing up for his own beliefs. So let's give some evidence. Now, it may be hard for you to think of this, but you really have to investigate the evidence. Now, imagine if Bob was, or whoever you're talking about was up on this chair, up in front of a courtroom, and you were investigating Bob, and your job was to simply pull out the evidence and present it in a court of law. Could you actually do that? And that is the way that I always investigate the evidence in myself, in other people, is I want to remove myself and really look at this from a different perspective, as if, hey, I'm interviewing this guy and I got to find the evidence that proves Bob is a badass warrior standing up for his own beliefs. So the evidence I have is, yeah, he does show up. He shows up when I post anything political, and he displays his own beliefs. Bob was a member of my gym. I seen him work out probably, 18, 20 times over an extended period. I actually think he did get some results. I don't know much about Bob other than a few things. He could have been a badass at some point in his life, but based off of this is the evidence I have today. Now, where we have to get to is no matter how hard it might be, I still have to work on myself to pull the evidence out, because in a court of law, if I was presenting a case that he is a badass warrior standing up for his own beliefs, I mean, let's just be honest. Most of the people would be like, well, you don't have much evidence. And I would have to prove to them that I actually do. And so digging down to really find that evidence is what is really powerful. Now, where we have to get to is, do I really want to be right in this situation, which means just continuing to argue over politics, which we all know that at the end of the day, listen, he's not going to change my beliefs. I'm not going to change his beliefs. And so, good. Let's just, be angry. Let's just yell. Let's just do all these things. But what I can change is me. What I can change is the man in the mirror. And when I change the reflection of the man in the mirror and take it off Bob and reflect it back on me, then I get to see what is really going on inside of Jesse, what is really going on inside of me. And that is the most powerful place that I can see and that I can be, because if I can't see those things, I'm going to be blinded. I'm going to be blinded by the truth. I'm going to be blinded by reality. And so I have to get to a place where I can just simply say, listen, what do I want? Do I want to be right? Or do I have something that I actually want? And so as I investigate that and I sit there and think, well, listen, it doesn't really matter if I'm right, if I'm wrong, because either one of those places, it's not going to get me what I want. So being right isn't a result. Getting what I want is a result. And so if I look at this inside of my situation, inside of this situation, what do I actually want? See, I do a lot of marketing on Facebook. In fact, probably 99.9 of my percent of my business is done specifically on Facebook. So that means that I have to really ask myself, hey, is Bob fit my avatar? Is Bob a business owner? No. Is Bob a client that's going to work with me virtually? Well, after I've blown his ass up several times and argued with him, most likely not. And so I really have to ask myself, what do I want in the situation? I want to attract my ideal client. I want to be focused on helping business owners, helping married business owners, helping people get the results that they ultimately want. And so if I really look at this, I could look at my original story, which was Bob is a pussy warrior who wouldn't last two minutes with me. Does that get me what I want? No. Jesse is a pussy warrior who wouldn't last 2 minutes with me. Does that get me what I want? No. Bob is a badass warrior and is standing up for his own beliefs. Does that get me what I want? No. And so I have to create the story, because if I stay stuck in any of the other three, I stay stuck as a victim to my own reality. And so as I work further through this, I realize that Jesse must create a story that actually gets him what he actually wants. And so what I came up with is Jesse is focused on helping business owners take their business virtually, who fit his avatar and the rest of the people, I don't need to worry about. The other side of this is Jesse's focused on three things: health, my health. So if we talk about health, we're talking about inside of the habit-based lifestyle health system, which is my spiritual health, mental health, my relational health, my financial health, and what is the last one? Oh my gosh. I said spiritual, physical, mental, relational, and financial. There's 5. Yeah. So the other thing is this: does any of what I'm doing with Bob fit into my health? No. And then I'm talking about my family. So my wife, my kids, and then my family, my friends, those things. Does anything that I'm working with Bob on right now impact that? No. Does it impact my business? No. It has nothing to do with my business. He doesn't fit my avatar. He doesn't fit my ideal client. And so the number one thing that I got to do is eliminate all of the things that do not fit into those categories in my life because everything else has just become a distraction. And so me arguing with Bob is robbing me of my health, my family, and my business, and ultimately robbing me of getting what I ultimately want. And so as I walk through this today, I realize, hey, Jesse, like, where else in your life are you letting people distract you from these three things? Where else in your life are you not holding up this frame so that you can focus strictly on these three things? And so I had to sit with myself and say, listen, here's where you got to get back to. There's no more getting on social media prior to you working on your own health in the morning. There's no more getting on social media until you're done with these things because everything else is a distraction. There's no more getting on social media 30 minutes before bed just to check and see what someone might have said. And if somebody doesn't fit your avatar, then what is the point of having them outside of people who you may be friends with or maybe adding value to your life? There's no real point in sitting there and arguing with them. And so as I walked through this was a powerful lesson that said, listen, how could I turn this into a habit? Well, the number one way I would turn this into a habit is eliminate all distractions for the first 3 hours of the morning, which I've done very well of up until probably the last 2 or 3 months. And so I really have to ask myself, listen, are you really committed to your business, your health, your family? Because you need to protect your mornings again. And so as I inserted this into my habit, into my lifestyle planner, I realized that I have let some of my habits fall off and not be committed. Even as I'm doing this podcast, I'm thinking of, man, I haven't been as consistent with my podcast as I was 2-3 months prior. And it's probably because I'm allowing myself to get distracted. I haven't been as consistent with my meditation just for the last 2 to 3 months because I'm allowing myself to get distracted. I haven't been as consistent with spending time with God and prayer. And I'm thinking, man, do I really want to be wasting my time arguing with a keyboard warrior like Brokeback Bob when I could be reading the Bible, I could be in prayer, I could be meditating, I could be focused on what I got going on instead of what somebody else who's not even going to be a client has going on in their life. And so I really realized that is an important lesson that I had to learn for me and why having triggers in your life are so powerful. Because could you imagine that I would just stay caught up in the story? I wouldn't ever investigate it. And so I wouldn't ever get to find out what was really going on with me. And who would have thought that this guy, this trigger, would actually help me expose what's going on in my health, my family, and my business, and realize that, hey, I need to realign with my habits. I need to block out my time. And I got to stay focused on me for the first 3 hours every single morning. So if you guys have any questions on this is what I call a daily reframe. This is something I learned between going through Byron Katie, the work, studying that, how to work on yourself. And then also, through years of Wake Up Warrior, where we were taught to constantly reframe the triggers, constantly to investigate them, but also to provide evidence and then to learn how to master and reframe the stories you're telling yourself. Because now I'm walking out of this with power. I'm walking out of this increasing my potential. And if I can do those two things, so can you. So guys, if you have any questions on this process, this is one of the things that we teach inside of the Habit-Based Lifestyle Business Secrets Acceleration. This is about creating a lifestyle blueprint, a lifestyle business on how you can take the power back in your life, increase your potential, and double and triple your profits. So I want to thank you guys for being on here today. Let me know what you've learned from this. Let me know maybe who's the Brokeback Bob in your life. And if you have any questions, comments, feel free to reach out to me, Jesse at habitbasedlifestyle.com. Until next episode, have a great day.
The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse